Welcome to Financially Ever After, where award-winning and nationally recognized financial expert Stacy Francis will bring you savvy tips and words of wisdom on how to secure your financial future before, during, and after divorce. For 30 minutes every other week, you'll hear personal stories from women who have either faced or are currently facing this transition. In addition, you'll also soak up knowledge and inspiration from the industry's top legal, financial, residential, and mental health professionals. And now here's our host, Stacy Francis.
Thank you, Steve. I'm very excited today. We have a fantastic guest with us, Elinor Tatum, and she is the publisher as well as the editor-in-chief of the New York Amsterdam News. It is the oldest and largest Black newspaper in the city of New York. It's also one of the oldest ethnic papers in the entire United States. Elinor was appointed the editor-in-chief all the way back in 1997, becoming one of the youngest publishers in the history of Black press. She began at the newspaper as a journalist, covering both local and national news affecting Harlem and the Black community. Under her watch, the Amsterdam News has evolved from typewriters to total computerization and undergone several new layouts with a refocusing of content relevant to the wider African American community in New York, but also across the nation. You can also see the website amsterdamnews.com. They have an online edition, and it's definitely a great place for you to go to understand what's going on in the world, also the national political discourse concerning African Americans. In addition to publishing the Amsterdam News, she's also definitely around. You've probably seen her on TV, WNBC Evening News, also on New York One. She's guested and hosted on a few other places, appeared on the Riley Factor 2020, The Today Show. Wow, I'm tired reading your bio. NBC Nightly News, Fox 5, CUNY TV, and so really been many different places over these many, many years. And we were just talking just a few minutes ago that you are not busy enough with your career, but you're actually president of the PTA at your child's school too. So, how do you do this all? Because you have a lot on your plate, and you're a single mom.
Yeah, well, you got to make your priorities, and I think one of my biggest priorities is my daughter.
Yeah. And
making things better for her is one of my top priorities. And I think about that with everything that I do. And, number one with that is her school.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I am, the PTA president. And this is my second year doing it. I'm a co-president, luckily, so I've got someone else to work with. But, being involved in her education is something that's extremely important to me. And what I find there is that because of what I do in my daily work life, it affords me the opportunity to be able to make things happen in her school life as well, and vice versa. Yeah. So it helps.
And what grade is she now, and how long have you been a single mom?
She is now in the second grade.
Yeah.
And I have been a single mom basically for 5 years now.
Wow.
And she's 7.
And I can't thank you enough for answering our survey and sharing your experience. When you look back, if you're talking to a girlfriend who might be thinking about going through divorce or actually is going through divorce, what would be your words of wisdom that you would want to make sure that you share with her?
Well, I think there are several, but the first thing is that if you know that this is what you want to do it as early as possible. Mm-hmm. Do it when you're as least entwined as possible, because I think that is one of the most important things that you can do for yourself. Mm-hmm. And also, if you have young children, when they're as young as possible. Mm-hmm. Because, I don't think my daughter can remember when my ex-husband and I were together. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I was very cognizant of making that break when I did, because I think if we had stayed together longer, I think it would have been harder for her, because she really would have been able to remember us as a cohesive unit. Mm-hmm. And this way she never really had that cohesive unit. And so it may be something that she missed out on, but she doesn't necessarily miss because she doesn't know what it feels like.
And I have read study after study that also says that younger children tend to be more resilient.
Yes.
Too.
Absolutely. And, she's I'm very lucky that I've got a young lady now that is very resilient and can really be popped into almost any situation and figure it out. Not all kids are like that.
Yeah.
But you also have to read your children very well and know what's right for your kids.
Yeah.
But, the idea of understanding where you are financially and knowing where you're entwined and how you're entwined is very important when you're making this decision. And understanding what the implications are and really talking to people. Before I actually filed for divorce, I talked to people and understood what I was getting into. And understood financially what I was getting into. Now, I don't think any of us are ever actually prepared because the costs can be, so much more than we ever expect, which was certainly the case in my case. But I'll tell you, I'm glad I did it when I did it because I think if I had waited any longer, it would have been much worse.
So 2 things I would love to hear from you is I'd love to hear how you got on top of your finances to then make this change. But then also, I know that this has not been a skip down the yellow brick road of happiness for you as far as the process. That it's been a longer process that you went through than I think you had hoped. So that's kind of like an understatement of the year. But on the first piece, how did you make sure that you got on top of everything, and then we're able to move forward feeling confident that financially I'm going to be able to make a go of this, that this is going to be okay for me and my daughter?
Well, first of all, having really sound financial people around you is number one important. Luckily, I had a team that I've actually worked with for many, many years that were right there for me. And they actually had helped me put together the people that I was going to when it came to getting divorce attorneys and whatnot. It's actually funny. I didn't actually use the people that they had suggested, and they're actually now using the people that I ended up using when they're suggesting people to other clients. But, having a good sense of who's in your camp, who's in your court, and knowing who you can count on in terms of advice, and going to those people and understanding what their limitations are as well, I think is very, very important. And, when it comes down to it, knowing how much you can bear and how much stress you can take, I think is something really important. And also having somebody in the mental health field that you can talk to, that is, that's not in your circle, that's not just a friend, but somebody that is a professional that is there for you. And when I say there for you, I mean 24/7. Because there are going to be those days when you just need to talk to somebody, because this is definitely not easy.
So what I'm hearing you say, Elinor, is that there's a couple pieces. Having the right legal support, having a financial advisor that you can trust, that can be there for you, and also making sure that you have someone to be there to support you for, this journey that is hellacious at times when you just need someone to be able to talk to. As far as for you, how did you go about finding your attorney, finding your financial planner, finding that therapist? Because that's something that a lot of women struggle with, of how do I find the right professionals to help me get through this?
Well, so we'll start with the attorney, because I think that was one of the hardest ones. And that started with recommendations from people. You start asking people, who would you go to? Now, normally I would have gone to my father. My father, unfortunately, had died a few years earlier. So I went to my best friend's father and I said, help, I need to find an attorney. And he said, well, there's no question you're using this firm. And I said, okay. And this was, my best friend's dad was like another father to me. So I went and met with the attorneys that he told me to go meet with. And I really liked them. But when I went in there, I met with the partner. Now the partner charges, a huge amount of money. And then there's an associate that is also going to be on the case.
Yep.
Now, you really have a choice as to how you deal with the law firm that you go to. You can be sending everything to that partner, or you can be dealing with the associate. And I ended up really counting on the associate. And the associate's rate was, almost half the rate of the partner. And so that cut my costs down considerably. And in actuality, the associate that I started with ended up leaving the firm, and I ended up going with her because she has been such an integral part of what I have been going through for now 5 years. She's still, I still retain her because I still am talking to her on a very regular basis, and it's still in court in actuality. And but finding that attorney who you click with, and finding an attorney who is not one that is trying to keep you in court, and because there are some of those.
There are, you're right.
And I have actually kept some of my friends out of court because I've seen what their issues are, and I've actually helped them to get through the process because I've seen what their attorneys are doing. But sometimes you can't help it. Sometimes there are issues that you just have to continue going to court for. For the financial advisors, as I said, I was really lucky with the financial advisors because these are people that I've been working with my company for decades. These are people that I had known for 20 plus years beforehand. And so it was just a continuation of that. But again, it's recommendations and who you feel comfortable with, because you've got to feel a sense of comfortability with the people that you're dealing with, because these are the most intimate facts about your life and about your finances. And you need to find people that are, number one, going to be compassionate with you, but are also going to be completely honest with you, and that are going to tell you what you can and can't do, and what you can and can't afford, and what is reasonable and what is not reasonable. And then with mental health professionals, again, a lot of it is friends. And talking to friends as to who they use, who they talk to, who they've heard about, and it's recommendations. Recommendations are really, really key. And it's really actually funny. The woman that I ended up speaking to by chance was a woman that I actually had met, I think it was something like 10 years earlier, felt like another lifetime. So it was really quite funny because I hadn't remembered her until I walked into her office. But and she's somebody I've become actually very close with and become close friends with. But it's a time where you create a team that it's a team that may, really become almost part of your family, because this is something that you don't go through alone. And if you put the right team around you, you've got a a kind of a cohort that is that's your team, and they're going to be with you. And, whatever the next steps in your life are, whether it's another relationship, whether it's another marriage, whether it's going to be a prenup or whatever, they're going to be there for you, and they're going to know, and they're going to have your best interests at heart.
And so what I'm hearing is a team for life.
Yeah, absolutely.
A team for life.
And because it's not something you just kind of let go of.
Yeah.
I know that if I were ever to remarry, I'd probably have a prenup. Mm-hmm. I don't think my lawyer would allow me not to.
Yeah.
And the same with, financial planning for going into something like that.
Exactly.
And also just the planning for my daughter's future.
Yep.
And, some of the things that end up happening when you're doing all of this is getting estate planning done as well. Talking to your financial people about getting estates and wills done. Mm-hmm, and, just making those contingencies to what happens to your money if something happens to you.
Yeah.
And how your child is going to be taken care of, and how you want that money to be spent for your child if by chance
something happens to you.
They're still a minor. Mm-hmm. And insurance, mm-hmm. life insurance, figuring all of that out, term insurance, whole life, and what you need to make sure that they're able to get through what they need to get through, so that they're going to be able to get through college and have everything paid for, and what that all looks like. And mm-hmm. These are horrible things to have to think about, but those are things you must think about. Mm-hmm. And so that's all part of that process. It's not necessarily during that whole divorce process, but these are things that your team is going to continue to think about as you progress and as mm-hmm. you continue going. And that's why they're going to be with you for longer than just that, initial divorce, because that's just part of it. You still have the rest of your life.
So as we're talking about all these things, what comes in front of me, in front of my eyes, are dollar signs. Dollar signs with regards to making sure you have your will in place, of course, disability, life insurance, all of that. And that is a certain dollar amount that no matter what, it is what it is, right? It is what it is. We all have to kind of put our big girl pants on, and we got to get that stuff in place now that we're single parents. But tell me, with the legal piece, the legal costs, you gave us some great ideas about how to keep legal costs down, to work with the really talented associate that often the price is half. I've even seen a third of the price of the partner. You've been going through this now 5 years and had legal costs for 5 years. What are some other tips you have? Because this could very well bankrupt someone, having to deal with court cases and going back and forth for essentially 5 years plus.
Right. Well, I think one of the things you have to figure out is what things you can live with and what things you can't live with. Mm-hmm. So, if those little things like, you may have everyone doesn't end up actually having a trial in a divorce. A lot of people do, mm-hmm. but a lot of people don't. They come to some sort of an agreement, and within those agreements are stipulations. And so sometimes one partner or the other does not follow those stipulations. So maybe it's the time that they drop off a child or pick up a child. Maybe they're late. Maybe they don't let you talk to your child every night, even though the document says they're supposed to. Maybe it's that they don't let you switch a weekend that you want to switch. Maybe they don't let you have them for a holiday that you're supposed to have them. There are all these little things that can come up. You've got to decide whether that's worth it to take them to court or not on. Yeah. Maybe it's that they don't give you remuneration for add-on expenses. Mm-hmm. And you've got to figure out if you want to take them to court for every little thing that happens, or if it's just not worth it to do mm-hmm. that, if it's not worth the expense, if it's not worth the headache. But then there are other things that come up, like renewing passports or getting permission to go on a trip. because when you take a child out of the country, you need to have a parent's signature on an affidavit that says you can take them. Now, that gets to a point where if the other parent won't sign that, you sometimes have to go to court. Mm-hmm. Now, then you may want to put in all those other little things that have been bugging you. Mm-hmm. But you don't put those little things in and of themselves. But when you're going to take them to court for something else, you put in the kitchen sink because you just want to get rid of all those other things that are hanging out there. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of a way to take care of those things.
Exactly.
So you just kind of build them up and put them in the back burner until there is something that you have to go to court about.
Essentially a non-negotiable, guess what, I have to go to court over this, so I might as well bring in all those other pieces that are not being abided by and have it all done at once.
Exactly, because that's one motion instead of bringing them to court every single time that it's like, okay, didn't drop her off on time, didn't pay for their part of gymnastics
exactly.
class.
They're half of this. Yeah.
So, because, in and of itself, those are little things, but they're annoying, yes. Mm-hmm. They can make you just absolutely go batty, but in the grand scheme of things, they're not big. Mm-hmm. But when there is the big thing, you put all the little things in there with it.
It's a great suggestion. It's a really great suggestion. And I think it's really important for the women to hear that are listening now. It doesn't mean that you're disregarding all those other pieces. It means that when there's something really big, then you do it, and you do it all at once. And I even think about it like back to school shopping. I don't do back to school shopping over 3 months. I go to TJ Maxx and we get all our back to school shopping done right then. And, knock on wood, I try to plan it when there's a sale on top of it. Right. And it's the same thing that you're doing, that instead of paying legal costs for all these small things of going into court, which will add up to thousands upon thousands. I imagine even, and I've seen this with clients, by going back to court as often as they do, the amount that they want to be reimbursed by their husband for certain childcare, certain add-ons that they're not receiving, the amount they paid in legal cost far exceeds the amount they would ever be getting in their pocket.
Absolutely. The legal costs far outweigh this. And sometimes it's just for the principle of it. Mm-hmm. And it has very little to do with the money, because I'd rather not spend that money on some of these things. But some of these have no financial remuneration to them, but it's the idea of being able to actually go somewhere and do something
with your child.
Right.
Yeah.
So, whether it's them not wanting to give permission to go to a certain place, or wanting to not give you permission to get a passport renewed because they want to be able to have oversight as to where you're allowed to take your child.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of little things and conditions that someone may want to put on you. And you've got to decide whether or not you can, number one, live with those, or if it's something you want to go to court over.
Elinor, you have talked about having a really good relationship with your matrimonial attorney. And unfortunately, a lot of women don't have that great relationship. What have you done to make it a relationship that works? And then the second piece, are there certain things about your attorney that are non-negotiables, that are part of the reason why that relationship works so well?
I don't know why the relationship with my attorney works so well, besides the fact that I just think she's fabulous. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that, she was a young attorney when we started. She's still pretty young. She's younger than I am. But from the time that we started working together to the time till today, mm-hmm. all right? And we've gone through 2 trials, several motions, several post-divorce motions. She has actually gotten pregnant and had 2 children has come out of her maternity vacation,
maternity leave. Yeah.
Maternity leave. I don't know why I couldn't remember that word for a moment. To actually come into court, so that we could actually deal with these trials. So she had a dedication that was bar none. She gave me access to her 24/7. And I think in certain cases, you need to have that assurance from your attorney that they're there for you at all times. And so if you're the kind of person that needs that, you need to have an attorney
that's going to be able to do that.
That's going to be able to do that. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you need to ask your attorney, okay, are you the kind of hand-holding attorney, or are you a kind of attorney that's kind of a cold, aloof attorney? Because they're both kinds, and hopefully they'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, if you need a hand-holding attorney, I'm not the one for you.
Yeah. Which I think is really, really powerful as we go into this process, know what you need.
Yeah.
Right. And don't be afraid to say, hey, I'm the person that needs to be able to reach out to you on a late Friday afternoon when something comes up and he never dropped her off and I don't know what to do.
Right.
Whatever that might be, being clear about that and making sure that whomever that attorney is, that they're going to be responsible, that they're going to be really committed and see you through that. Because you are right. There are a lot of attorneys that will definitely respond to your email, but they'll respond in 3 days.
Right.
Right. And that's not necessarily going to be the right thing for you.
Right. And I mean, I have had many friends that have had those attorneys, and I've had many friends that have gone through 3 and 4 and 5 attorneys.
Which is painful and expensive.
Painful, expensive. It doesn't look great to the judges either. And, that's the other thing. You got to know who your judge is. And certain judges respond better to certain attorneys.
Exactly.
And if you are in front of a judge and you are having a bad time with your attorney, when you go to get another attorney, you better make sure that the next attorney you get has a good relationship with the judge you're in front of. And it's something you really need to look at closely to see how they respond to it. Because, judges do react differently to different attorneys. And because as every person, people react differently to different types of people. And now judges, try to be as fair as absolutely possible. But still, some people just rub them the wrong way.
Yep. Exactly. And you, whether it's fair or not, you as the client will then now rub them the wrong way.
Exactly. So you need to really look and see how these attorneys act and react with with these judges.
Yeah.
And you need to ask those questions.
If you were talking to a woman right now who was struggling with their attorney, and I don't know if you've come across or talked to any of your girlfriends, I have imagined that you are such a warm, genuine personality that people come to you to confide in and get your counsel. How do you counsel them? What do you tell them to do in that situation where their current relationship with their attorney is just not working?
Well, I tell them to find another one. I try to help them as best I can to find others. Sometimes they listen, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's helpful, sometimes it's not. You never have a crystal ball, unfortunately. And what works for one person is not necessarily the right match for somebody else.
Exactly.
So you have to go in there and you have to feel that it's right for you. Because one person's the right match for one person, it doesn't mean that it's the right match for another person.
Yeah.
I've had people that I've talked to that have not listened to the recommendations that I've made and, continue to have a really, really bad time. And others that have and have still had a very bad time. But others, in one case, I had 2 friends that I've been friends with for a very, very long time that were getting divorced, and they had just one sticking point that was going to send them into court. And I said, no, you guys, you can't do this. I won't let you do this. And I said, just sit down with me. Give me an hour. Give me an hour of your time. And I sat down with them for an hour, and I helped them to figure it out.
Yeah.
But then the next point was, I couldn't let their attorneys talk to one another.
Yeah.
Because if their attorneys talked to each other, they would have blown the whole thing up.
Exactly.
And so I negotiated between their attorneys as well.
Wow.
And basically what their attorneys weren't able to do in 6 months, I did in a week or two.
Yeah.
And then borrowed the offices of my accountants for them to sign the papers.
Yeah.
And got it done.
And so I'm really hearing three things from you too, as far as finding that attorney. Understanding what your needs are, and if they're the right person, if they're the hand holding, if they're going to be the responsive within the time frame you need. Also, on top of it, if they're an attorney that understands what you're looking for. So an attorney that wants to fight over every single, small piece and keep you in court is another, essentially, another big no-no.
Right.
And I'm also hearing that
unless you're the kind of person that wants to do that and you've got the bank account to back that up.
Exactly.
I mean, because if you've got millions and millions and millions to fight with and you really just want to stick it to somebody,
there you go.
But that's going to be your life.
Exactly. And there are attorneys for that.
Right. There are definitely attorneys for that. I don't recommend it.
Yeah.
But, if that's what you want, if that's how you want to dedicate the rest of your life, that for some people, that's what they have and that's all they have. But that's going to be a very unhappy existence.
And the third thing that I think is really powerful that you're saying is that if that relationship is not working, that you should talk to them about it. And if that behavior, whatever is not working, doesn't change, then you need to move on.
Yeah.
For the right fit. I mean, just as you say that, when should you start the divorce process? Sooner than later, right? As soon as you know. And it's the same thing also I'm hearing with that attorney, that if that relationship is not working either, then you need to make sure that you talk about it. And if that doesn't conform to what you need, then move on too.
Absolutely. Because, one of the things that happens when you try to switch attorneys is that the thing that costs the most money is somebody trying to get up to speed with what's happened in your case.
Exactly.
And the less that has happened in your case, the less they have to catch up on.
Exactly. Another really important piece. So we're coming to the end of our half hour with the podcast, and I'd love to hear from you just any other tips or things that you want to make sure that you share with our listeners today. You've shared so much about starting the process as soon as you know, how to make sure that your relationship with your attorney is a good relationship for you, and also how to make sure that you're not breaking the bank on legal costs if you don't have necessarily a piggy bank the size of the piggy bank of the Rockefeller family. Right. Anything else that you would want to share that you want to make sure that we talk about today?
Make sure to take care of yourself through all of this. Mm-hmm. And if you have a child, make sure that keep a little on the side so you can do things that are special with them.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most important things, because at the end of the day, that's who you're going to be with. And your child is the most important thing in your life.
Yeah.
And the memories that you're able to create with them are so incredibly special.
Yeah.
And having the resources to do that are so important.
Yep.
So being able to hold a little bit back so that you can have those special moments, mm-hmm. I think is something really important, but also for yourself, that, massage or that spa day with your girlfriends mm-hmm. is absolutely needed. Mm-hmm. That mental health check-in with your psychologist or whatever, you got to do it. That day off that you take from work just because you need to sit home in your pajamas.
Yep. God, that sounds so good.
and watch Netflix.
Yeah.
just because.
Yep.
You got to do it, and you got to get permission from yourself to do it. There's no one else really that you got to get permission from except for yourself. And that it is okay to give yourself permission to do that. And I don't think we give ourselves permission. And one of my friends, Tiffany Dufu, wrote a great book called Drop the Ball.
Drop the ball.
And it's about basically how women have really tried to do it all. And that there are things that you can drop the ball on. As one of the instances she gives us, like, cleaning the top of the refrigerator.
Yeah, no one's looking there.
Exactly. And giving yourself permission to do certain things.
Yeah.
And delegating.
Yep.
And you know what? If the laundry doesn't get done today, it doesn't get done today.
And it's just okay. There's bound to be more clothes out there.
Right. And if you wear a pair of jeans for a second day,
it's fine.
It's fine. So, I think that's the best advice I can actually give is take care of yourself, because you're the only one that can do that.
I can't thank you enough for being here, for sharing your time, sharing your experience. And there's so much that you have been able to share with us. So I can't thank you enough. Thank you.
Thank you.
You want to do that ending one more time without that phone?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. And you want to promote your how to get a hold of you too?
Yep. So, Elinor, thank you so much for being here. You've shared so much about your experience, and I know that it's going to be really helpful for our listeners.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So thank you. And if you are interested in seeing our podcast or visiting our website, you can go to francisfinancial.com. There you'll see all of our many, many podcasts, as well as information about the work that we do. We are a wealth management firm that specializes in working with women who are going through trauma. And almost all of our women are going through the divorce process, or unfortunately their husband has passed away. So if you do need any help or support, we do have a second opinion service, and that will look at all of your finances, where you are today, where you want to go, and start to fill in those steps to help you get there. Thank you.